Mia never thought her life would shift on such an ordinary afternoon. She had just finished her long shift at the diner, her arms weighed down with groceries, her shoes worn from standing all day. The late sun stretched shadows across the street, and for a brief moment, the world felt calm. She paused to catch her breath, smiling faintly at the thought of treating herself to a quiet dinner. Then she heard it, the screech of tires, sharp and violent against the pavement. Her head whipped around, and her heart leapt into her throat. A delivery truck, massive and heavy, had lost control as it barreled down the narrow street. The driver was fighting to steer, but momentum dragged the machine like a wild beast. Just a few steps ahead, a man walked casually, eyes fixed on his phone, completely unaware of the danger closing in. Time slowed, and Mia felt her chest tighten. There was no one else around. No time to scream loud enough. No chance the man would notice before it was too late. The world seemed to demand an answer in that instant, act or stand still. And Mia, who had always believed in doing good, even in the smallest ways, did not hesitate. She dropped her groceries, cans and apples tumbling across the sidewalk, and her legs carried her forward before her mind could catch up. Her breath was fire in her lungs, her pulse a drum in her ears. She ran straight toward the impossible. Toward the truck. Toward the choice that would change everything. Mia's feet hit the pavement hard as she surged forward, every nerve in her body alive with urgency. The truck roared closer, its weight shaking the ground, its shadow swallowing the man who still hadn't looked up. Fear tried to creep into her mind. This was insane, dangerous, impossible, but her heart overpowered the doubt. She knew she couldn't let someone die when she had the chance to stop it. In that split second, instinct took over. She launched herself toward the vehicle, her body bracing for impact. With all the strength she could summon, she kicked the side of the truck's front wheel. Pain shot through her leg, but the force shifted its direction just enough. The giant machine lurched, skidding awkwardly, metal grinding against asphalt as it veered away from the man. The sound was deafening, squeals of brakes, the crash of metal against a street sign, the thud of groceries rolling into the gutter. For a heartbeat, silence followed. Dust and smoke hung in the air. The man dropped his phone, stunned, his wide eyes finally lifting to see what had happened. Inches away, the truck sat tilted, halted in disaster's grasp. And there, chest heaving, stood Mia. Her leg trembled, her hands scraped from the fall, but she didn't think of herself. Her gaze darted straight to the stranger, making sure he was safe. The world had nearly ended for him, but for Mia, it was just one simple truth: she couldn't walk away when someone needed saving. The man staggered backward, breathless, as if the ground had just opened beneath him. He looked at Mia with disbelief, like she was something impossible standing in front of him. His suit, tailored and pristine only moments ago, now had a rip along the sleeve where he had stumbled. His polished shoes were scuffed, dust clinging to him in ways he'd never experienced before. But none of that mattered. His eyes were locked on the girl who had just put herself in danger for him. Mia bent to gather her scattered groceries, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She wasn't looking for thanks, or even acknowledgement, she only wanted to make sure the man was unhurt. "You're okay, right?" she asked, her voice steady but soft, as if this had been nothing more than a minor interruption to her day. He opened his mouth but no words came. He had faced high-stakes meetings, ruthless negotiations, even global headlines, but never this. Never someone risking everything without hesitation. Finally, he managed a shaky, "You saved my life." Only then did Mia really look at him. She noticed the sleek watch on his wrist, the sharp cut of his jacket, the commanding presence he carried even while shaken. He wasn't just anyone, he was Daniel Carter, the youngest CEO of a company everyone in the city knew by name. But Mia didn't flinch at the recognition. To her, he wasn't power or status. He was just a man who almost didn't get another breath, and she was simply grateful he still could. Days passed, but Daniel couldn't shake the image of that moment, the blur of a girl throwing herself toward danger, the fierce spark in her eyes as she chose a stranger's life over her own safety. In his world, people reached for him out of ambition, out of what he could give them. But Mia? She hadn't cared who he was. She hadn't asked for anything. That kind of selflessness was something money could never buy. One rainy evening, Daniel walked into the small diner where Mia worked. She was balancing 3 plates on her arm, her hair tied back, her face tired but warm as she greeted customers. When she spotted him, her brows knit in surprise. "You again?" she asked, setting down the plates with practiced ease. "I had to find you," he said simply, sliding into a booth. "You didn't think twice that day. No one has ever done that for me before." His voice carried none of the arrogance of a CEO, it was quieter, almost vulnerable. Mia shrugged, wiping her hands on her apron. Anyone would have done the same. But he shook his head. No. Most people wouldn't. That night stretched into conversation, and conversation into something more. They talked about dreams, fears, and the weight of expectations. For the first time in years, Daniel wasn't a CEO, he was just a man rediscovering what it meant to connect. And Mia, though unsure of where it would lead, felt her guarded heart begin to open. Months later, the memory of that day had become the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. What started as chance encounters turned into evenings filled with laughter, long walks where silence felt comfortable, and moments where 2 very different lives began to intertwine. Mia, once consumed by the grind of endless shifts and quiet sacrifices, found herself swept into a world she never thought she'd touch: concert halls, elegant dinners, trips beyond the town she'd always known. But what mattered most wasn't the luxury. It was the way Daniel looked at her, as if her courage had given him more than survival, it had given him a reason to live differently. He had spent years surrounded by wealth, yet always felt alone. Now, he discovered joy in simple things, helping Mia carry groceries, listening to her dreams, laughing at her stubborn insistence that she could still do everything on her own. One evening, beneath the glow of city lights, Daniel took her hand. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried the weight of truth. "You didn't just save my life, Mia. You changed it. And I don't ever want to imagine it without you." Her heart tightened, not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization that love had grown where neither expected it. And as they stood together, the spoiled life Mia now lived wasn't defined by riches or power, it was defined by love, gratitude, and the unshakable reminder that one selfless act can ripple into forever.